You mean you didn't get my Makwa story? My Mama Makwa story?
I came in for the second half of it. I liked it. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Amy Kling. I'm the Professional Development Chair for GSG. And this is a seminar that we're putting on, Storytelling for Researchers. And I think you're kind of getting the gist of it from Charlie. This is Chari Mills. She's kind enough to come in and do this little session for us. She specializes in whittling down business plans to 99 words or less and making them into 99-word stories. So basically, the whole idea of this is, especially if you're here for the 3MT competition next week, especially for that, 99 words takes about 45 seconds to say. So if you get 3 99-word stories, then you're good. So please help yourself to refreshments in the back. There's an attendance sheet. If you could please sign that if you get a chance, that would be great. And let's welcome Chari Mills. And
all right, thank you. So those of you who got here earlier know that I am Mama Makwa, which is short for Chari Mills, and Charlie itself is short for Annette. My dad gave me both names, and when I got home from the hospital, he just started calling me Charlie, and I never knew why. And when I was 10 years old, a woman asked me, "Why does your daddy call you Charlie?" And I said, "Well, he wanted a boy. And he taught me how to fish. He taught me how to hunt. And I rode horses and worked in his logging camp. So I figured he wanted a boy and called me Charlie." He said, no, that wasn't it. It wasn't until he was 71 years old that he finally told me that Charlie was his imaginary friend when he was a boy. So I'm a fiction writer. I'm a fiction writer with an imaginary name. So I think it kind of fits. But I graduated from Carroll College. Right now I'm an MFA student. MFA is Masters of Fine Arts. And yes, those things exist. So for 20 years, I worked in the marketing industry. So I learned to tell stories for businesses. I was born into a storytelling culture, so it was an easy segue for me and a great way to use a creative writing degree. I wrote newsletters, e-zines. I'm a blog publisher. You can find me at carrotranch.com because I do storytelling with people all around the world every week. And we write these 99-word stories together. So I like to think of myself as a literary artist. For my MFA, I'm working on a novel. That's my grad project. So it's knitting together 99 words at a time. And I like to consider myself an authorpreneur because when you're in the book business these days, you have to be more than an artist. You also have to be a business person. And you may find that in your own careers too. You may find that you need to be an entrepreneur as well as being your designated profession. And I'm a storyteller and a coach. So we're hardwired for stories. And you can look up the science for that. This is how we understand the world around us. On Baffin Island, when the ice started melting, and this is back, we're talking about in like 2002, people who had lived there for thousands of years, they knew where to go out and hunt the seals. They had adapted and adopted modern techniques of hunting. They had snow machines, rifles, but they still know where to go. They still knew where to hunt the seals. They knew where it was safe, because if you think of the Arctic and the ice up there, it's really flowing water, but it's frozen. And so there are some places where it's dangerous to cross. And so certain times of year, you have to know where it's safe on the glaciers and on the ice shelf. But the ice shelf started collapsing. Rivers started flowing where in for 6,000 years of oral history, this had never happened before. And suddenly there was a generation that didn't have anything to pass down to the next generation. Their stories were stopped. They were halted. They had no stories to share. Suicide rates went up. You know, it came up there and actually helped hip-hop artists. Hip-hop artists went to Baffin Island, and they brought the music from the streets. They brought what it was like to be yanked out of your story and to be given new stories. They brought new life to Baffin Island. And so from that point on, suicide rates went down, and the generation started communicating again. And they started sharing more stories, new stories. So stories are important to us. So if you're thinking about telling stories that have to do with like your work, you know, stories have the power to move as well as inform. I'm not a scientist, so I can't tell you things about the ice or climate change or melting that has any kind of significant data in it. If I wanted to make that into a more of an informative story, I could go out and do research. But if you're a researcher and that is data that you know, you need to go out and look for the human angles. You need to go out and consider the human stories. Because I'm sure there's a very human reason why you're studying what you're studying. And when you are telling these stories, you want to move the listener. You want them to feel something. You want them to go, ah, now I know why you care about the ice melting. It has an impact. So we can also process data through stories. So someone like me who's not a scientist, I can actually process some scientific data by putting them into a story. And people who read them can also take that data and understand the story and the data too. If you just gave people charts and reports, their eyes would roll in the back of their heads. And they're like, yeah, I know it's important, but they wouldn't look at it. So we can convey the human aspect of research. And that's how we get people persuaded to care about what it is that we're doing. So remember, your audience is human. So that investor or that professor or that judge at a competition, that person goes home at night to a place where he or she sleeps, where he or she has family and friends, books or screens. That person has a life. They're human. Sometimes we tend to dehumanize people. We get nervous because this is a judge. But you know, that judge has a human aspect to them. There used to be an old adage that if you were nervous getting up and speaking in front of people, just picture your audience naked. Okay? Well, the reason for that is that you're humanizing your audience. You're less afraid of your audience. And so you can do that with, well, I'm not telling you to go picture bankers naked or anything. Please don't do that. But consider the human elements when you're talking to your audience and when you're talking to or presenting in front of or pitching to a judge, an investor, a grantor. Consider that human element. So you never want to forget your own humanity either. And that's why you collect your own stories, because you can connect heart to heart to people. You may be trying to get into somebody else's head. You may want that research, that data, that importance that's in your head, in somebody else's head. But in order to do that, you've got to connect first, heart to heart. And that's humanity to humanity. Fear can sometimes create tension. So if you connect heart to heart with somebody, you can share with them maybe some of your fears, your concerns, your worries, and why this research you're doing matters. And if you have that heart connection, that person will be concerned too. Think about the news media, okay? They make us afraid every day. And I'm not, good journalists are out there doing good journalism. But the mainstream media, hi, come on in. Get some water and some coffee and treats and some place. And there's place up here. So if you consider the news media beyond journalism of telling stories, because every story does have a component of fear, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But what mainstream media does is they go right to the fear, because they know that's the easiest trigger to get people to read, to look, to persuade them. So you have to go easy on that fear. Back in the 80s, there was a lot of like health research that came out, and chiropractors were really good at like putting the fear of eating this or eating that into people. And it's because, you know, they wanted people to be healthy, and they wanted people to live good, productive lives. They wanted to help extend their lives. But they it was almost like they were teaching Fear 101 in chiropractic school. And I worked with a bunch of chiropractors in the health food industry over in Minneapolis. And I was like, what are they teaching these people? But it was just, they were teaching them that one story component of fear. And it's just one component. So remember to go easy on that one. You can use it, but if you have a heart connection with somebody, you don't always have to use it like a bludgeon. And think about what it is that you want them to feel, and what it is that you want them to think about. So, what's your story? We're going to do a little exercise at this point. So, a story is basically about someone who does something somewhere. And in the novel writing world, that's a book. That's a character, a plot, and a setting. That's what you need about a story. But every story has a premise. It has a reason. It has a purpose. Wherever it starts, it moves forward. And you've got to give it context. So where is this story coming from? Where is this story going? So right now, each of you are going to craft your own stories. Just one sentence about who you are, what you are doing, where you will take your work, and why. And your challenge is to put that all into one sentence. And there's an example right there. I'm Chari Mills, and I make literary art accessible around the world because I believe in the power of people telling their stories in their own voice. So let's take a few minutes and do that. You're going to work on this story the rest of your life. This story is going to evolve, but you're going to find 50 years from now that the heart of this story is still a part of you and journeyed with you and changed with you. So you want to know this story so well that when somebody comes up to you and introduces themselves, that you say, "Hi, I'm Chari Mills. I make literary art accessible." And that's going to spark, "Really? What's that about? What do you mean? What's the story behind that?" So this is how we're going to introduce ourselves. We're going to go around from table to table, and everybody's going to share their story, okay? So we're going to start with this brave table first. And I'll let you arm wrestle as to who goes.
I can go first, I
Okay,
guess.
thank you.
I'm Karuna, and I'm working towards empowering consumers to shop sustainably because I believe consumers have a hidden superpower, the purchasing power to drive global sustainability in industries and beyond.
Yeah, all right. Thank you. Great story.
Hi, my name is Jordan Ewing. I'm a computational science and engineering PhD student here at Tech working on remote sensing of soil parameters. And we're going to be using this for soil mapping and improve soil parameter predictions to help mitigate potential vehicle hazards.
Oh, right on.
Hi everyone, I am Nick, a hydrogeologist who studies the hydrology of Chihuahua Prairie because I hope to use my work to temper my skills and become an agent of change.
All right. The water walkers need you.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kapur. I'm a material science PhD student working towards making 3D printed bone implants, and because I believe medical treatment should, which will make the process cheaper, because I believe medical treatment should be accessible and cheaper to everyone.
Great. You make literary art accessible, and you make bone transplants accessible.
All right. I'm Amy Kling, and I work to make underutilized imaging techniques more useful, reliable, and accessible to all research environments to improve medical diagnoses and treatments, because I believe everybody has a right to quality healthcare, no matter how rural of an environment you're in.
Yes. We're going to move backwards. Spotlight. What's your story?
All right, I'm Untitled Chapter, and I am a physicist who also develops instruments that measure the optical properties of small particles in the air to provide better insight for climate modelers around the world.
Wow, cool. Good job. Okay, I'll move to the table back here.
I'm Kevin Jaworski. I'm an aquatic ecologist. I study water, so I think a better understanding of this important resource will help us preserve it.
Yes. Another water walker.
My name is Jacob Ojewski, and I study math to gain insights that can be passed on to research and teaching, because I believe everyone has the capacity to understand mathematics.
I appreciate that very much.
I'm Julia. I'm a geological engineer, and I study safety aspects of geological engineering because I want to create sustainable and safe infrastructure. Because I believe the whole body deserves to live in sustainable and safe causes.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Chandan Kumar, and basically I am an earth and planetary scientist, and my research is focused on mapping of minerals from Earth and Martian surface from an exploration point of view, as well as to understand the value and the past climatic condition of the Mars, to understand if there was any life on the Martian surface.
That's great. There's a lot of science fiction writers who'd be interested in that.
I'm Will Design, and I develop stronger, lighter materials for spacecraft because I want humanity to go where it has never gone before.
So he can do his work, right?
Hi everyone, my name is Sagar Patil, and I'm working on developing next generation lightweight materials to help deep space exploration. And in doing so, I believe that people can really harness their creativity. All you need is just a computer.
This is so exciting. I was in 6th grade and we pretended to have gone to the moon and created a colony. And our teacher had us act all this out and like think about what it would be like. And you guys are like really doing this. This is exciting.
Hi everyone, I'm Akshay, and I explore ways to make fluid dynamics look colorful to study turbulent flows from the nature.
Right.
Hi, I'm Kaya. I'm studying health economics and I do access resources as easy as possible.
Great. Back table? Jump in.
My name is Ruby, and I'm a microbiologist. I'm studying nanotechnology for the application of community water.
Okay. And a Quay water walker.
Right. I'm Eric Pearson, and I work on improving gene therapy purification to make treatment more accessible for vulnerable populations and to make treatment safer. You shouldn't have to go bankrupt in order to make your muscles work.
What a good point. That's a power quote.
I'm Stefania Weiger, and my name is Sheriff Lawyer. I'm Italian. To make a new nano technology speaker to revolutionize the audio world.
All right.
My name is Alan. I'm researching nanostructural testing techniques to improve the additive manufacturing for the students' feedback organic process, because I believe it's important to make a quality part and we want to know what it's to people use.
Yeah. Good.
I'm Marie Richard. I'm developed in Anishinaabe and indigenous technologist, which was in our business communities to develop strategies.
Yes. Thank you. Which?
Hey everyone, my name is Sakura Chishko, and I work in the field of researching biofuels from renewable sources, as conventional sources of fuel are depleting faster around the world.
Great.
Hi all, I'm Kono Chiller. So basically, my research focuses on synthesizing various DNA sequences, which can be used for saving the life of the innocent animals on which drug testing are done. So rather than testing those drugs on those innocent animals, we could test those on the DNA strands. Use those.
Wow. Great.
Hi everyone, I'm Vicky. I'm working on engineering for a patch by using steel engineering techniques. Because I believe engineering issues are the future medicine.
Great. Thank you. We'll move up to this table.
I'm sorry. I'm passionate about using my knowledge of functional chemistry to impart life positively, assisting design of drugs that can cure pregnancies.
Great, thanks.
Hi, I'm Shobhit Chaturvedi. I work on explaining how proteins inside our body work, as it can help and improve our understanding and creativity.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Rishi. I'm a science fiction speaker. I work on particle cosmology. I just study how universe structure is.
Nothing small there.
That's a science fiction.
I'm Casey Major. I'm a PhD student in mechanical engineering, studying and developing control algorithms to improve automated systems. I enjoy using math science to solve problems and improve systems.
Great.
I'm Shinkai. I'm a PhD student from mechanical engineering, and my research is numerical simulation. It can help improve the intelligence, the experiment data of math.
Okay.
I'm Karen Johnson. I'm a staff member here at Michigan Tech. I share the stories of computing research to promote intelligent computing and to help the public understand computing-related scholarship.
Great. Got a story catcher in here.
Oh, okay.
Our photographer.
I'm Marina. I do quantitative research, and I study relationships between social workers and immigrants because I believe in the idea of a more inclusive society.
Awesome.
I am Nathan Ford, and I'm helping to propel the small satellite industry by creating a new class of thruster to meet the needs of a rapidly changing landscape to allow global internet coverage.
I am Dilek Erkman. I am a PhD student in mathematics department. I study fluid dynamics to solve the language equation based with turbulence problems because of helping securing people's life and helping more and understanding nature.
So.
Okay, my name is Nara. I'm a family communication candidate who use narrative analysis to introduce Muslims' mother boys to the world while they are raising their kids after they relocated in the country because of immigrant things.
Yeah.
And to just introduce the experience, the challenge, the struggle with their needs, because I believe every mother needs a chance.
Yes. Good work.
Hi, I'm Purva. I'm working on making efficient wind turbines so that we can have clean, sustainable electricity.
Because mothers
need clean, sustainable electricity.
Do you just feel like the cobweb of life, we're all interconnected, even though it seems like we're in different departments or have different things that we're studying, but really we're all connected and it's that humanity. And whether we're going out into space or we're digging into the past or we're looking at current problems to solve them and we're looking to improve the future, we're all interconnected by our stories of humanity. And that, you all give me goosebumps. So there are great stories in here. And just know your story and start collecting some stories to go with it so that other people know your stories and your work and what you're doing. Because it all matters very much. So thank you for taking the time to do that. Okay, so now we're going to shift to vision. So all of you in here have vision because you all have a vision of what you're doing and why you're doing it and your role and your place in that. You don't have to be going to Mars to know, but you have to have that picture in your mind of what success is going to look like to you. So entrepreneurs, we often think of entrepreneurs as being visionary, and usually it's because entrepreneurs are really good at articulating the advancements that they see and how they want to go and create something new. And so in society, we tend to look up to entrepreneurs because we see them as visionaries. Artists are often thought as visionary too, but so are researchers, so are grad students. So everyone has a vision. Maybe it's that little daydream that you have. Like, what would it really be like to put something into space that went where no one thought it could go? What if we did create these wind turbines that changed lives? You know, what if we helped mothers and people who have problems with their muscles from the time that they were born? All these issues, what if? What if we succeeded? What does that look like? That's our vision coming to life. That's success. So a vision gives power to your stories. You know, it's about who you are, what you do, and why. Abhijit Niskar said, vision is imagination fueled by an indomitable force of determination, dedication, and courage. Does that sound like the path of a grad student? You got to have those things, huh? So you have vision. So, whoops, I went backwards. That's right, we're going forwards now. So now this is an exercise for you to tell the story of your vision. So on your tables, there is a handout. So it looks like this. It's vision work. So this is kind of a brief exercise for vision work that businesses use. Have you ever heard of Jack Black's book, The Great Game of Business? It was looking at the power of including everybody in a company in articulating and going after the vision for a business. He was, I think, CEO of GMC, one of the car companies at one point. So this kind of comes out of that work, and this was about 25 years ago that this work started coming about. But over in Ann Arbor, there's a deli called Zingerman's. Has anybody ever been there? Okay. So it's a bunch of anarchists who started that. And anarchists can have a vision too. And the success of their business, Zingerman's is amazing, but it's because they had a vision and because they articulated that vision not only to their employees, but with their employees. So I trained with them. And this is kind of condensed version of the training through Zing Train. And you are going to write the first draft of your vision. Depending upon where you're at in your studies, whether or not you're doing the pitch that's coming up, or what you project in the next couple of years that you need your vision for. So do you need your vision to get your proposal through? Do you need your vision to win this 3M contest? Do you need this vision to help you get a grant? So keep that in mind, because you want to imagine what success looks like for your work. So if your work were successful, what does it look like? And think of it in a time frame of like within the next 2 years. If 2 to 5 years, sometimes Zingerman's did visioning for 10 years out. And when they did their 10-year vision, they put in wacky stuff, like things that would never happen, like, you know, we could never be that successful. And you know what? 10 years later, when they got there, those things had come true. So it gives you a focus. Go for greatness. Think Martin Luther King. I have a dream. Think big. Be specific. It should scare you. Should excite you. If it's not scary, you're not thinking big enough. So you want to get past all the reasons why this won't work, because you're not problem solving your vision. You're not trying to figure out how to get to your vision right now. You're just focusing on that vision of success. Right from the heart. Visioning happens from the inside out. And go with your gut. And that's usually where the wacky stuff comes in. You're like, oh no, I can't put that in there. No, put that in there. Okay, you can always edit later. Get into the future. Imagine yourself there. You have arrived. It's 2 years from now. What does success look like for you? Considering your work and where you want it to bring you. I want you to write quickly. So there's a hot pen technique. And this is a great, useful tool for you anytime that you have to get something out and you want to override that critic. We were talking earlier about the imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome is where you think that you really shouldn't be here in this position, that they're going to find out that you don't really know what you think you know. And this happens not only to grad students, but happens to artists, entrepreneurs, business people. This is something, it's a phenomenon, it's human. And this happens a lot. So learn to override it. It's doubt, it's self-doubt. And if you do this hot pen technique, you just write fast and you ignore whatever the critic is saying in your mind. Oh, you're never going to do that. That's impossible. No. Possibilities aside, just go for it. Get personal. You know, what is your personal and professional life going to look like 2 years from now if your vision comes to fruition? And write it as a story. You can use a date as a prompt. You can say in 2 years if that helps you. So just go ahead and go for it. We're going to take 15 minutes and write. And if you have questions, go ahead and ask.
There's no possibility. Possibility.
I'm a literary artist, so I have a vision. You know, I came from marketing into just writing for art, writing stories that are fiction stories. And I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to make literary art that thing that connects us. That's that human touch for me. So my vision of success at Carrot Ranch, which is my literary community online, writers connect at Carrot Ranch, expressing creative courage and playing with literary art, 99 words at a time. Carrot Ranch thrives, an imaginary place where real people from around the globe gather. A tribe creates literary art collectively and individually. Carrot Ranch leads author education on branding, platform building, and improving craft. Loyal readers return for compelling stories and buy books from the community. Each year, we meet in person on nature writing retreats. As lead buckaroo, I wrangle words, collect stories, motivate growth mindsets, and flash my way to complete novels about veterans, history, and earth science. Okay, that 99-word draft right there, that vision, I first wrote that draft in 2014, and I had no one at Carrot Ranch to play with. And I just went for it because I had this vision in my head. And it's online, and I love stories, and I love people, and I wanted to hear stories from around the world. So I started Carrot Ranch online from northern Idaho. And someone from Australia showed up. And she brought a couple of friends who lived in the UK. And they knew somebody who lived in Germany. And all of a sudden, India showed up. There was like revival going on in literature in India. And all this just started happening. Last year, I did lead a nature writing retreat in Vermont. Never been to Vermont before, but one of my writers is there. And so I got an invitation to Vermont to go lead that retreat. So everything in here, and I'm now working on my MFA and my novel. So it's happening. And I wrote this back in 2014 when I knew nobody online. Okay? So go for it. What's really in your heart? Have your vision.
Right now? Yeah, I'm fine. So I had to go to the next Friday. It's never let me sleep. Yes. I can't sleep. I really, really feel. Maybe I should feel so.
Yeah.
There you go. That is your vision. I don't think you really have a choice managing that. They don't love your children's choice.
Yeah.
Actually, curious words make them.
What do happy mothers look like?
Yeah. Sitting home, eating cookies, watching TV. What a beautiful life.
Wow. I think I want to be a mom again.
Just sleeping in a very silent, very dark room.
I'm scared. I want to watch all the movies I missed right now.
Oh, that was my mom when she was happy. She could sleep uninterrupted.
Just wondering what happened, guys.
Yes.
My dad would be very much saying,
Oh my God. I'm so biased.
So what I didn't share with you is what my current vision is. Because my current vision is even, I know, more out there. At the time that I wrote this, I thought it was pretty significant to say that I wanted to connect with people from around the globe. Because I lived in a really remote area. I have a veteran husband who was starting to have some struggles with cognition. And it didn't seem like world travel was going to be in my future at all. And it isn't. It's not that I travel physically, but it's that because I held a vision of wanting to connect with people around the world, that I found a way to do it that was unexpected. And that's often what happens with our visions. So I do have, every year, I rework my vision. So every year I take this and I just go on a little one-day retreat, and I'll cut out pictures from magazines and put together a board of what things could look like, and I rework this. The importance of having this vision is what you can derive from it. So underneath here, you'll see that I have Carrot Ranch's mission. And Carrot Ranch exists as a safe space for writers to explore literary art. Lead buckaroo Chari Mills masters the art of catching, telling, and teaching stories. Her dynamic community shines a North Star over literary artists who gather to courageously create, grow, and achieve. She wrangles 99 words, 99-word flash about history, veterans, and rocks, crafting award-winning novels and sold-out writing retreats. Okay, so veterans. Today, the very first day of a pilot program for vet centers, which are across the United States, specifically for combat veterans. Today, we launched a narrative therapy group, and it will have started right here in Houghton. And it's very exciting because it's an expansion of the work I wanted to do with literary art and veterans. And one of the things that we'll be doing next year is creating a retreat for veterans where they can come, they can write stories, they can tell oral stories, and writers will be there among them, listening to their stories, helping them craft stories. We'll be telling stories. And then everyone who leaves gets a story written by a writer. And some of them will leave with stories they've written themselves, too. Because the power of telling a story is very healing. And I'm just very excited that today happens to be like the very first day that this kicked off. And so Carrot Ranch is living its mission according to that vision that I've had. And it all goes back down to what I call the North Star. The North Star is when you take that distillation all the way down to 9 words. And I challenge you to put what you want to do into 9 words. So making literary art accessible, 99 words at a time. That's it. That's when people ask what I do, that's what I tell them what I do. And to me, those 9 words hold everything that matters to me in my vision. And it's all right there. So I want you to take just a few minutes right now and take what you've drafted. This is something, again, this is homework for the rest of your life. Every year, try to revisit this. A couple years from now, maybe you've left it alone, you'll come back to your notes in a notebook, and you'll go, wow, some of this is like starting to happen. I see, and you'll see things, things that only speak to you. You know, it might be hard to tell somebody else, like, how, you know, my vision is coming true in my life, but it happens. It really does. But just take a few minutes right now and put your vision into 9 words. Just 9 words. Because that's going to be your North Star that you follow. Some of you are so excited to go start working on your visions, you're leaving. Can we go around the room and share? You willing to share your 9-word visions? Affirmatives? Okay. We're going to start with this table this time.
Start with the 199 or 9?
Just the 9. Just the 9 words. And it's okay if you haven't crafted it into 9 exactly yet.
Making space accessible for all via cheap electrospray thrusters.
Oh, good job.
Don't quite.
That's okay. Keep working on it.
Okay.
That's going to be your North Star. And when it comes to pitching and telling somebody your story, this is a great thing to tack on to who you are and what you do and why you do it. And then you have that punch, that 9 words.
I will save to the wind from my design in my sample.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Communication channel between parents and kids.
Yes. Good.
So
That's okay. That's okay. Go over here.
Continuous self-development founded in science, spread to the
Good. Good.
don't have an exact 9 words.
That's okay.
But it's more like helping others and myself not easier.
Yeah. Good.
Sharing with the world the stories of eating disorders.
Yeah.
Not as exciting as all the others, but.
Yes, but it captures the heart of it. Good.
Improve patients' lives, better biomanufacturing practices.
All right, it sounds like a tagline. Very good.
Using economically viable biofuel alternatives available to the society.
Good.
Discovering or synthesizing something novel like a middle size or new.
Good.
Develop next generation vehicles for space exploration through collaboration.
Okay, I'm just going to enjoy going through the three of you.
I don't really have a.
Because I just imagine, like, in my lifetime, you guys are going to do things that I'm just going to go, wow.
I don't really have a.
You don't have?
Concise word, but
That's okay.
Something along the lines of providing a computational framework to spur on material.
Good. That works.
Scientists in the field of earth and planetary sciences.
All right.
We earn from our skills to invest in enjoying life.
Good. Yeah. You got your personal life in there with it. Good.
It's more of a side project of mine that I'm working on in to make science more accessible to people of all abilities at any time.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a good point to make too, is that you can do vision work for side projects and different things. I do vision work for each book that I work on. So you can have one big overall, and you can have smaller ones too.
Continuous development of the technologies available here and that team success.
Good. Are you related to Ari by chance? Do you know Ari at all? No, I'm. Do you know Ari from Zingerman's? No, you don't know
I've
him.
just been there. My folks
Okay.
both went to Michigan. So.
Oh, okay. Okay,
We
so
get
they know
a
him?
pitch every once in a while.
Yeah.
Mine is understand Chilwaukee's hydrology for its protection, management, restoration.
Good.
Figure out how to develop a 9-word statement. No, I'm kidding.
Awesome.
Yeah, develop advanced remote sensing tools for furthering planetary exploration.
Ooh, okay.
Using technology to empower consumers to purchase sustainably.
Great. Would have liked your work when I was working in marketing.
All right. Improving and innovating imaging methods to bolster diagnostic healthcare.
Mine is to reduce toxic waste generation by using artificial enzyme designing chemicals.
Making impactful technological contributions to the community using additive manufacturing.
Good. Look at you all. Got you writing. So we're going to shift gears a little bit here. And we're actually going to get to kind of the nuts and bolts of storytelling. So far we've crafted a personal story, in a sentence even. We've articulated our visions and set a North Star. Anything that you're proud of, like a grade, even a compliment that a peer or a professor gives you, any proud moment where you feel like I'm on track, I want you to keep a list of those proud moments. It's really important. And it also helps with fighting imposter syndrome too. So now we're going to look at how we craft stories. So this is the nuts and bolts of it. So there is nobody who can better tell you about how a story has shape than Kurt Vonnegut. So we're going to...
If you click it, it looks like just a regular click on it. But if not, then I can
just do it on here.
Okay. Thanks.
Vision has created a body of work of startling eccentricity and universal appeal. His singular view of the world applies not just to his stories and characters, but to some of his theories as well.
Well, there's no reason why the simple shapes of stories can't be fed into computers. They are beautiful shapes. This is the GI axis, good fortune, ill fortune. Sickness and poverty down here, wealth and boisterous good health up there. Here's the very middle. Now, this is the BE axis. B stands for beginning. E stands for electricity. Now, this is an exercise in relativity, really. Is the shape of the curves are what matters and not their origins. So we'll start a little above average. Is why get a depressing person? We'll start... The whole thing, we call this story Man in Hole, but it needn't be about a man, and it needn't be about somebody getting into a hole. But it's just a good way to remember it. Somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. People love that story. They never get sick of it. All right, not copyrighted. Another story, also a beautiful curve and easily fed into a computer, called Boy Gets Girl, but it needn't be that. Just a way to remember it. Start on an average day, average person, not expecting anything to happen a day like any other. Find something wonderful, just loves it. Oh, God damn it. Got it back again. People like that. Now, these are beautiful curves, and this gets a little complicated. Computers can now play chess, so I don't know why they can't digest this very difficult curve I'm going to draw for you now. And it so happens that this is the most popular story in our civilization, Western civilization. As we love to hear this story, every time it's retold, somebody makes another $1 million. You're welcome to do it. Now, surprisingly enough, I've said it's depressing. You know, people don't like stories about below average days and people. But we're going to start way down here. Worse than that, who is so low? It's a little girl. What's happened? Her mother has died. Her father has remarried a vile-tempered, ugly woman with two nasty daughters, big daughters. You've heard it. See? Anyway, there's a party at the palace that night. She can't go. She has to help everybody else get ready. She has to stay home. Now, does she sink lower? No. She's a staunch little girl, and she has had the maximum whack from fate, which is the loss of her mother. She can't go any lower than that. Okay, so the fairy godmother comes. Gives her shoes, gives her stocking, gives her mascara. Gives her means of transportation. Goes to the party. Dances with the prince, has a swell time. Boring, 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 boring. Now, there's a slight inclination to that line as I've drawn it because it takes perhaps 20 seconds, 30 seconds for a grandfather clock to strike 12. Does she wind up at the same level? Of course not. She will remember that dance for the rest of her life. Now, she poops along on this level till the prince comes to shoe fits. She achieves off-scale happiness.
That's stories. There's nobody better to tell stories than Kurt Vonnegut.
Is it working? I might have to click on the side again.
There we go. Okay.
Nope. We're
Yep, up there. Good. So Kurt Vonnegut referred to the BE line. He forgot to mention the M in the middle. And it goes right in between B and E. So every story has a beginning, middle, and end. And we talked earlier about that fear. This is where it comes from. So if you're thinking beginning, middle, and end, the Greeks had a perspective on this for when they did dramas. And they said that a story begins with pity. Well, we think of that today as empathy. Like you want to have empathy for someone. And this is why we have characters that we can relate to. And if you're telling your story, think of yourself, remember we talked earlier about that human connection, that human to human? That's what creates the emotion at the beginning of a story, is that somebody cares about someone else. And that's what the Greeks referred to as pity. Then there's the fear. Because we have come to care about this person, or because we've come to care about what happens to your work, we fear that it might not happen. You know, we have, again, this is where mainstream media has gone to. They're like lop off the beginning and lop off the end, and they just go to the middle of stories. And they create a lot of fear because it gets reaction. But really, if you want to be somebody who's a change agent, you want to first make that human connection. And when you get to that fear part, you want to be able to create and generate concern, that people have concern for what happens, that they're willing to be activated to make choices or decisions in their lives because they want to join you in preventing whatever it is you're trying to prevent or doing what it is that you're trying to do. In the end, the Greek says there's like catharsis, it's like a great big cleansing. Think of this as satisfaction. Think of your research and coming to a conclusion that's satisfactory, that can be something that's shared, could be something that adds to the next body of research. So that's the Greek perspective and kind of the how we would think of it today. So this is a modern take on telling a story. So the hook in the beginning is that you want to use stories to connect people to the problem. And then you also want to tell stories that are about your research, that give insights. And remember we talked about narratives, the brain being hardwired for stories. And so people can remember facts and figures and data through the stories that you can tell and share. And that's that middle part, that's the insights. Then there's the outcome. So this is the power of a resolution. So coming to some sort of problem solving, or how it adds to the ongoing solving of a problem. So the literary advantage, when I worked in marketing, is that we would tell stories that were emotive. So we would tell stories to get consumers to care. I worked in the natural food industry, so I did a lot of stories on farmers and cheese producers and people who created things in the organic industry. And there were great stories out there to collect. and to share those stories, because every single one of those farmers had something to overcome. Because remember that very, very powerful story that sounded an awful lot like Cinderella? You know, that little girl had a lot to overcome. So we like those kinds of stories. Investors, grantors, they're going to want to know what you've overcome in your research, or maybe even in your own personal life. What have you overcome to reach this point, and how do you need their help to go further? So crafting a story is more than just narrative and emotion. It also takes learning a few basic literary techniques. And what you've been practicing today, we call that constraint. That 9 words, those 99 words, that's a constraint. And it signals to the mind that you're going into problem-solving mode. And so it really works with helping to overcome blocks. Even if you're writing something for classes, it's a great tool to have to say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to write this in 99 words. And you can write in 5 minutes. I do this every week. And I do this at the library. And we write 99 words in 5 minutes. And you can take another 5 minutes and edit that. And you have a pretty well-crafted idea. But you can also have a story in just 10 minutes, too. So it doesn't have to take a lot of time, because time is not something you have a lot of. So these are the storytelling elements that are the most important to you to know right now for what you're doing. Use details. Moms like cookies? What kind of cookies? Me? Yeah, what kind of cookies? Yeah, and you, because it's all our experiences. That's what we all bring to our stories. What kind of cookies? Okay, I'm a mom and I like chocolate chip cookies too, so we can relate to that. So when you say, moms want chocolate chip cookies, I think of warm kitchens and the smell of vanilla and the taste of chocolate, all in a chocolate chip cookie. And see how that's a concrete detail. So those are the kind of details you want to use in a story. You want to use all the senses you can. You want to write tight. Hemingway was the master of this in literary art. The other way you can use that 99 words as a tool is teaching yourself how to write tight. Because when you only have 99 words, and you have to cut words out, or you have to tighten ideas, it's a really good process to learn that, and what words you don't need, and how to get right to the point. Learn how to control your passion, and use it deliberately. So if you're excited about something in your research, craft some stories around that, because that's going to get other people excited for your research too. And if you're doing the pitch, you want to throw in a couple of these stories to get the judges, the audience, people who are listening, excited about what you're doing too. So learn how to do that deliberately. And put data into a narrative form. So inform people by using a story, something that people can relate to. Because oftentimes you're working on projects or in laboratories or with data that the general public doesn't even know exists. And you're really excited about it, and you tell them this data, and you think they're going to get excited too. And they're like, I'm not sure what you just said. But if you can tell a story about it and put your data into that story, then that makes it more understandable. And great storytelling builds tension. You want people to know what happens next, especially if you're trying to get them on board with you to take part in what happens next. Build that tension. Don't give away the chocolate chip cookies right at the beginning. Build up towards it. And then just use that 99 words as a constraint tool. That's just going to help you in crafting stories and in helping condense ideas. So, 99 words, no more, no less. This we're going to practice this right now, but I'm going to throw you a curveball because I'm going to give you a prompt that I promise has nothing to do with your research. So you've been writing like from your vision, from your personal stories, and now you're going to do this 5 minutes, 99 words. Okay, I have to have Siri help me here. No, I don't. I have a clock in the back. Siri usually helps me with this part. Okay. So, are you all ready? Is there suspense? Are you scared? Snow Queen. Snow Queen. Snow Queen. Use that any way you want. Go where it leads you. There's no right way to do this and there's no wrong way to do this. Just go, Snow Queen. Sure. Go where it leads you. Yes. Okay.
So we start with the Smart Queen.
Nope. You don't even have to mention it. Just where it leads you. Just tell a story about it.
Snow. Someone be clear of it.
Okay, at this point, we're going to take 5 minutes. No, it's okay, because this is revision time. So it's all good. So at this point, I want you to count up how many words that you have. And you will either need to cut words or add words to your story. So you want to get this to 99 words. So either cut or add to. And you have 5 more minutes to do that. Would we have 3 volunteers who would share a story? Okay, and I'm going to say that 99 words is 45 seconds. Okay, so keep that in mind when you have a speech or a presentation to give and you're trying to time it. 99 words is 45 seconds, which is why we don't have time for everybody to do their story. But okay, go ahead if you'd like to read.
She had a burning idea to guard the territory, cause the villain global warming is melting away her territory. She has to think some way to eliminate this. So she made some humans on this earth who would address this problem. Now these faithful people tried doing many methodologies to guard her territory. Snow Queen is happy now about terms green technologies say to her. She's so happy now, but alas, there are so many technology that left that they had idea until now wanted more you.
Oh, good. Good job. Thank you. Would somebody else like to read?
Go ahead.
Sure. Once upon a time, a little girl named Elizabeth was born in the land of Snare. She happened to be the daughter of the most kind and generous king who ever lived. As the child grew older, her father became ill after a hunting expedition across the Arctic land. As there were no other children, the responsibility fell upon Elizabeth. After a few days, the king had passed in his sleep, and the coronation for Elizabeth followed shortly after. Growing up, she had been trained to lead, but never could she have expected it to be thrust upon her so soon.
Wow. All right. So creative writing is your minor?
No.
Somebody else like to read? Got our story catcher here.
The Snow Queen was tired of summer. When would the weather get colder? She longed for sledding and ice skating. She dreamed of evenings by the fire, watching the snow drift past the window and smelling the wood smell. One particularly warm day, the Snow Queen decided to make room for in her yard. She couldn't change the temperature, but surely there was something she could do to make it seem like a cold and snowy day. So she emptied several feather pillows on the lawn in her backyard, laid down in the feathers, and made her snow angel.
Well, thank you very much. So 99 words can create some fun fiction. And any of you are welcome to join me on the second Saturday of the month at Portage Lake District Library if you want to have a break for an hour and come write 99 word stories. And we just play with it. But it's serious business too, because these 99 word stories are going to be ones that you're going to collect. And again, it's lifelong homework. And it's like a Lego bucket. So you know how you have Legos in a bucket? They're different sizes and configurations, right? And there was some kid recently who built like this massive Titanic that I think would fit in this room out of Legos. This kid must have had a lot of Legos. You ever stepped on those things in the middle of the night? So think of your 99 word stories as Legos. You know, they're going to be different colors, different sizes, and they're going to fit different scenarios. You always want to be working on that story of yourself and articulating your North Star from your vision. So those are stories that you will keep like in this, at your tables, there's how to prepare for a powerhouse pitch. And it's meant to the house. So this is your house. This is where your Legos are, whether they're on the floor or in a bucket, that's up to you. You can scatter them about, you can use them, but this is your house. So when you're at your house, always begin at your front door and introduce your address, who you are, and that's that story of you. Then remember that 99 words equals 45 seconds. So if you have to give a 10-minute presentation, you can go to your Lego bucket and pull out some stories that you can arrange to fit that configuration. You got a 3-minute pitch, 3 stories, plus your introduction and what you want to leave people with that's going to make it memorable. You know, exit in such a way that they remember who you are and what you're doing. So you can keep this. The third thing on there, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Greek technique of memorizing a speech. And it's imagining, since this is your house, you imagine yourself in different parts of your room So you can memorize different parts of your speech. But you can do that with your stories too. You can think, this is my front door story. This is my story of myself. This is my living room story. This is my bedroom story. This is, don't make them bedroom stories. You know, be mindful of the stories you share. So you want to construct your stories in such a way that fits the pitch. Think of pitching a little bit like online dating. You know, you're trying, well, some people feel pitching isn't fun either. So you want to make the best match. Or if there's a grant that's available, that grant is going to be very specific, and it's going to require of you that you match what they want to benefit. So they're looking to give out money, but they have criteria. And so when you're doing your research for grants, if it's a stretch, you know, that's not the best grant to go after. But if you have something and you feel like it really fits, then that's where you pull out your stories that fits each of that criteria of the grant, because you want that human-to-human connection. And so that's why you're always going to be digging in your Lego bucket and pulling out the stories that you need that will serve you best. Combine your best stories and making those emotional human-to-human connections. Always keep in mind that your audience is human. And have that clear vision for your success. And that's how you pull this all together when you're doing your presentation and pitches. And don't forget to breathe. So if you are pitching, go do some deep breaths. 10 deep breaths before you go out there. It'll calm your nerves. It'll fill your lungs so you don't go out there gasping and then tripping over your words because you're trying to catch your breath. So breathe before you go and you pitch. And that's all I have to tell you about storytelling. But if you ever need feedback or help, you have a way to contact me. And you know where I'm at the library on the second Saturday. So this is a time period for you to ask questions and how I can help you with storytelling. Any questions?
Interesting story.
Yeah. There's cookies too. So.
Yes.
Story behind the organization sounds pretty interesting.
Thank you for asking that. Carrot Ranch. So I grew up kind of a fifth generation of buckaroos. And buckaroos are cowboys from a certain part of the United States. It comes up from the Californios tradition. There are ranchos in California before California was ever a state, part of the United States. And so there's a certain type of horsemanship that comes out of that culture, and that's where my family comes from. And so that's the ranch part of it, because I left riding rodeos and horses, I left that to go write stories. But I always I have that ranching in my blood. The carrot, that's my nod to the natural food industry and the cooperatives that drove organics as we know it. And back in the 70s, it was all about food justice. And they had a logo, and it was a fisted carrot, and it was food for people. And so that's a nod back to my co-op roots and social justice. So that's how Carrot Ranch came to be. So thank you for asking. I love this. You guys made my day. So you wrote stories about the Snow Queen.
Okay, you said about making 99 and making shorter
If you ask to add all details to make it human.
If I said warm, yummy, gooey cookies, that's a lot of words. But if I said chocolate chip cookies,
There's someone who didn't have an experience with it. Chocolate.
maybe not. And that is remembering your audience is human. So also consider where your audience comes from. So if you're talking to an audience that you know they have never experienced a chocolate chip cookie, don't bring up chocolate chip cookie because they're not going to get that reaction from it.
I want to sit up with them.
Then
We'll craft a 99-word story about chocolate chip cookies. It'd be very distinct.
Yeah. Sometimes analogies really work well, and that's a way to say, a chocolate chip cookie is light. And that what follows light can be so many different things. A chocolate chip cookie is like grandma's kitchen. A chocolate chip cookie is like a different type of dessert that a chocolate chip cookie is yeah, you're always trying to persuade. You want them to take that energy and experience.
The cookies that are left over, if you'd like to take some, please do. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to take them.
Taste them yet, just give us some more. Because I'm working actually on something that I feel a little.
Yeah.
So these are pretty sweet. I told Nancy I had new ones. She's totally
It'd be very sad.
because she was like, I lost my old one, and she might want an old one. We still have an old one.
We have like 35 ones left.
Yeah, just so you know, Dr. Barr wants the one because she lost hers.
I think she's a Nancy. I think she's a doctor.
No?
And so
I thought she was.
I think so.
Because I took her class.
Maybe working on a dissertation.
I called her Dr. Barr for the class.
She's like, coming out.
But that your vision should be. Your vision should be a dream.
Figured I'd wait until everybody else had it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Did you write your 99-word story with no tweets?
Yeah, it was way longer than 99 words. I was like,
Alex, I'm like,
I didn't even finish.
I'm like 96
I was
words.
going off into a whole
And then
thing.
3 more words. It was perfect. Wow, that is a
It was
lot of
in,
work.
yeah, icy winds tore through the congested branches and melted the soldiers' helmets as they
Oh my
rolled behind
gosh.
the tree line, teeth chattering against the cold. And then it was all about them fighting the magical army. Fantastic.
Mine was about a girl. Yeah, she like snow.
Oh, yeah. for like weekly writing workshops, like departments, like the grad school thing is extending out. So I'm the one for my department, and at like a writing meeting last week, like we did a little writing exercise of yes, you look since like 1990.
I'll tell you what, come on.
But oh yeah, we did a writing exercise, which was write your research as a movie trailer, and everybody else was like just like a narrative voice, and they were basically describing their research, and I'm like, okay, so scene opens in darkness, somebody's screaming, "Detective, what do we do?" And then like it was like this whole thing, like me and my research team enter, possibly in case. And then afterwards. The guy that was running the meeting was like, "Oh, do you look funny for the research? I'll give you money to script your trailer."
So funny. I was like,
Wait a minute. So funny. So funny. Yeah.
Oh, I might.
Now whenever you watch it, you're like, I'm right there. I got it.
I forgot a lot of things. Actually, get some library. That's good.
Engineers, writers,
Yeah, pretty much.
suddenly I'm creative.
I'll eat with that crap that has like water, you know?
2.5 gallons. pounds, I think.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out how many of those we get for free on the TV.
That's dope. That's 2.5 gallons? Yeah, 2.5 gallons.
John.
And they charge for that now. It was cheap.
So good.
You know, it turned out really good. I really like how many copper turned out. Like, I was not.
Because, well, I was
It looks good, yeah.
The doctor was like, yeah, these are, I see a picture of the color, but they're silver.
Like,
Wow, that's sweet. Oh, man, now I want to. You order 50 extra?
We might get them for us at the end of the year, we'll see. You gotta rejoin.
Yeah, that's true. I'll show the committee. So I don't think the members on there now are going to quit anytime soon.
Okay. Yeah, you
So they just showed up for their masters.
Right, yeah, you have
They actively
Gabriel and
Julia.
Yeah. They both joined my committee, and then they both had to quit my committee because they couldn't make meetings.
Because of the class. Yeah, I remember that. I told them to come to replace me. I was like, you two need to go here. They're losing me. You should go in and fill in. They're like, okay.
we should probably stop recording, huh?
Yeah, we can edit that out and post it.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Boom.
Actually,